lines set up. I've got to be honest with you guys. So when I was setting this up, I had to order. I got the microphone for my birthday. It was my birthday yesterday, and I got this microphone, but unfortunately it didn't come with any of the cables. So I quickly ordered on Amazon, and about an hour ago I just plugged the mic in and hope it would be a plug and play job, but clearly it's not. So I will start again for those that missed the introduction. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a dram already poured now, and we're going to tie a few flies for the Stillwaters. Now, if you missed the start, I'm drinking Cask and Ann. It's an Aberlour staple now. It used to be like a special reserve thing, but I think it's in their proper lineup. This is the 0001 offering, and you'll get batch variation with this, but mostly they're the same. It's brewed at 48%, so it's a fairly strong whiskey. When I poured it into my glass, if you missed it, I have added a couple of drops of water, and I use this sort of, it's the old kid's ibuprofen thing, but I dropped her off at uni today, she won't need it. And I use that to put in just a small amount of water, because you don't want to ruin your whiskey by drowning it. So I've been a big fan of Aberlour for years and years, and when we used to holiday up the road, I did manage to visit the distillery, and that's when I bought the Cask and Ann here. Now, those of you that know whiskey will probably have heard of Abuna, and we'll be exploring the Abuna later on down the line. I hope to make this quite a regular sort of thing. I think it'll be a bit of fun. Depending on how many glasses of whiskey I have, it could be really fun. But we'll see how we go with that. So it's a fairly potent cherry bomb of a whiskey. Now, many years ago, when I was only sort of in my baby infancy getting into whiskey, all I would drink was sherry casks. I've got a much broader palate now, and we'll be looking into from Speysides to foreign Taiwanese, Japanese. There's plenty of whiskies out there that are really good. So let's have a wee sip. Oh yeah, good stuff. If you're having a dram yourself, please share with the crew. Jura, I've got a bottle of that up there. I keep it for people I don't like. Okay, right, we're going to switch over now to, I hope you've had a chance to read the blurb at the bottom of the screen there. It did give, that's the kind of, I don't know, what would you say, the selling thing. Not that I make any money. Aberlour are not sponsoring this video. I am. So, we're going to switch over to the split screen first of all, and as you can see, I've got a fly in the vise. Now, sadly, the lock style season's coming to an end for me, and I've only got a couple of matches left, and I'm planning a day out with a pal for the back end fry feeders, and we'll be fishing with the big stuff. But for the matches I've got left, I've got a few flies to tie up. So what I'm going to do is I'll tie the flies, and I'll keep popping into the chat to say hello or just have a bit of crack with you. If you've got any questions, please do use the chat facility. And before we get going, please take time to give the video a wee like. It just boosts the YouTube algorithm, and it'll help to push the video out. Now, I've worked really hard in the month of September. I've put out a short every day. I've not put a long content video out, and the reason for that is I'm nearly at 20,000 subscribers, which is not very much in the scheme of things when you see some of the other bigger channels, but for me, it's something I've worked really hard to get to, and I would like to try and do that before September. So if you're tuned in and you haven't subscribed, please click that button now. So, what am I going to tie? I'm going to tie some of these. I'll do probably a couple of each fly because I need them for my own boxes. I fished a match a couple of weeks ago, and I went into my boxes, and sadly they looked like they'd been pillaged, and that was probably the case. They'd been pillaged. So, I need to find my glasses. Or there'll not be much tying going on without these bad boys. Right, so I've got a hook 250 barbless in the vise. It's at size 8. Now the size 8 Hanak 250 does fit within the competition gauge. And it's a great hook. It's got a nice wide gape, which I want for this particular pattern. Now I'm going to get some super glue onto the shank, and we'll get a bed of silk. Down. Now I'm going to be tying this to these patterns, because I've already done 4 or 5. I just need another couple. Will you get more donuts? 20,000. The kids can't wait. In fact, I dropped my eldest off today at Reading Uni, and she's probably going to miss out, but I dare say I'll have to buy her some the next time she comes home. Yep, it's donuts for the 20,000. The kids did say that we should have it at 15, but I kiboshed that. You've seen the price of them Dunkin' Donuts. It's outrageous. So, we're going to grab some of this. Now, it's I've not got much of this left. I got this from Rutland Shop many years ago, and it's a blend of gold and silver. I really like it, and I tie most of my sparklers with this stuff. It's just a nice blend. Now, I suppose this is a booby version of the Pearson sparkler. Now, Graham Pearson, for those of you that are not involved in the competition scene, was a real top performing guy back in the day. He used to fish for ACA Masterline, which was a Grapham based crew, and they used to win an awful lot of competitions, and they had guys that had won the Brown Bowl multiple times. Rob Sosby, Rob Edmonds used to fish for ACA Masterline. They were a top outfit, and we had Graham along to an Army Spring match once, and he did show us this fly. Now, what I've done with the fly is refined it to my own needs. When Graham tied it, it was a really bulky, meaty pattern. It was huge. I've kind of slimmed it down a little bit for the booby version. His version originally was tied on a double hook, and it would be used as a sort of point fly, if you like. But I don't think I have double hooks in my box due to the sort of complete change over to barbless flies. I just don't bother with them anymore. There's no need, really. So I'm just using this black and pearl fritz. Now, unfortunately, a bit like the tail and the wing of this fly, I haven't got the packets anymore. I've had them for years, and it's just what I use to tie this particular pattern. And it took no small amount of searching in my box of frits to find it. But it probably doesn't really matter. It's just a confidence thing, isn't it? Where, like, fly tying's a confidence. Well, fly fishing's a confidence thing. I mean, let's face it. Trout have got the brains the size of that. I don't think they're taking much odds. It's more the confidence of the fishermen that people worry about. So that's we got the body in. It's not a particularly tidy fly, this, but trust me when I tell you how effective it is. It's absolutely brilliant. And if you want a change for the old popper fries that you see being tied, and people say, oh, the popper fries on the weed beds, this works just as well. So I'm just trying to get a length of this, and what I'm going to do with it is double it over. It's not a fly I particularly enjoy tying, but you know, you want to do well in the comps. You've got to just bite the bullet sometimes and tie stuff you're not quite so keen on. So I'm going to bring that in. Now there is another fly that I recall from years ago called The Abortion, and I think, again, it was a Scottish thing. I think it was from Lochleven. Graham's in here, I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong. The Abortion was a Lochleven pattern, and it was pretty much a sparkler type pattern. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to bring this over and just have a look at it. Now it's right up to the eye of the hook here. I don't know how, well, you'll see it really well actually because it's on the big screen. But what I like to do at this point is I'm going to get my super glue. If you followed the channel for some time, you'll know I'm a great fan of super glue. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my thumb and forefinger. I'm going to sweep that all back. I'm going to get a bit of super glue just in at the top here. Now that's going to make my life a lot easier, and it's going to give me a nice firm base at the front here. Again, one of the reasons I like to use nano silk is because you can really clamp down on materials. Now, with marabou and stuff, you would normally just come in at the back here and pluck it away. But what you can do with this is just cut it. And some people say, oh well, a straight cut, that's no good. It doesn't look natural. The fish don't care. They don't care. There we go. So that's looking not too shabby. Now, let's have a wee look. Robert, I'm glad you're having a wee dram. Just noticed this. Got on GHQ Scottish rum. Very nice, Ian. I'm partial to a bit of rum. I've got a friend who collects whiskey, and to be honest, that's where the guy that's kind of got me into all different kinds of whiskey. But he's a big fan of the rums as well. He buys quite a lot for his collection, and I've been lucky enough to try some of them, and they're very good. I do like rum. It's wasted with Coke and lemonade and whatever mixers you put in it, but there we go. People will do what they want with their alcoholic drink. Cheers. Okay, so the booby eyes. Again, if you've followed the channel for some time, you'll know how I get the little tic-tacs that I'm about to tie on here. And if you haven't followed the channel for some time, why not? So what I do is I get it onto the thread here. I line up a little hole that I've put in the middle, and I get a couple of wraps round. Now if you've got that little hole, generally every time you wrap, you get it bang centre and you get nice and even booby eyes. Then I'll wrap up till I bring the eyes on top. Then I'm going to get 6 or 7 wraps. Excuse my fingers. I will be doing it again anyway, so you'll see it. And then I'll get a few in front like so. I'm not very happy with how that's sitting actually, but let's work with what we've done. Too much blethering and not enough concentration on the vise, and that is not particularly good, but I'm going to make do. It's for my own boxes, so I'm not that worried. So first thing I do, and again, super glue comes in, I'll invert the vise and I'm going to get some super glue on the bottom. And I'm very generous with the super glue. I want this to be as stable as possible. And then I'll split the eyes. I must have tied half a dozen of these this morning, and they all went perfect. And just switch the camera on and it all goes Pete Tong. Typical. Or it might be the whiskey. Mind you, I've only had one sip. So there we go, that's the first one done. I've got one more of these to tie, and then we'll move along to something else. How's everyone doing? Hi Peter, how are you doing? Are you well? Recovered from the inter-services? Big browns. You were wetting a line casting for the big browns. You need bigger flies than these, pal, I think. I know Dave Downey, and I've seen a few of his patterns, but I'm not familiar with that one. Popper fry, or they've become flavour of the month, I think. Popper fry have become very popular, and I think with good reason. They catch a lot of very big fish, but what I would say is the fly's being fished where the big fish live. So are you near Rutland, buddy? I'll bring you a bottle down when at the airflow. I don't live actually near Rutland, Graham. I live in Surrey, which is about 2.5, 2.75 hours away from Rutland. When I go up there, I tend to stay up there for 2 or 3 days just to make it worth my while for the travelling. But actually, Graham, now that you're on, I've just recalled, I've seen you did a booby on Facebook, and I think I've paid homage to it in Monday night's video. It might be Monday night's. I've tied a booby, or maybe it's a short. I don't know, but I've definitely stole your idea, and I'll be using it in one of my videos, pal. So thanks very much for that. Right, let's get this last sparkler done, because I'm not enjoying it. So the next match I've got is down at Chew Valley, and I've not been there for a number of years, maybe even 6 years actually. I can't remember the last time I was there, but Chew's been very kind to me over the years. It's not a fishery I like, if I'm honest about it. The problem I find with Chew is that it's a very shallow reservoir. It's not very deep, and when you get a big wind on there, it just simply colours up, and the fishing can be absolutely terrible. I've been caught out more than once at Chew with that very thing. Just let me get this started and tidied. So I did have, like I say, it's been very kind to me though, despite the fact I'm not a fan. But I had a couple of England qualifiers there where I managed to get through the process. Quite memorable. Sorry, I've not got very much. I know you're seeing sort of this top half and the fly, but I've got very little room to work here, and it can become quite problematic at times. Especially when you've got 3 or 4 different fly materials on the bench and you're looking for something in particular. You'll just need to bear with me on that one. I'll be as quick as I can with this so we can get something a bit more civilised in the vise. But I think, I don't know how many, but I know Graham's a big fan of the competition scene. He fishes with a highly successful team, and I'm sure he will appreciate that sometimes you just need to tie things like this to get the job done. Are you near Rutland? Okay. What's your favourite Stillwater? Ooh, that's a tough one, Dylan. I like that. What's my favourite Stillwater? I think if you pressed me, I'd have to say Rutland. Rutland. When Rutland's fishing, I don't think there's anywhere quite like it. It's just brilliant. It's a great fishery. But like any fishery, I suppose, it can be very cruel. You know, you turn up to Rutland and it's not fishing. It can be a long 3 days. Like I say, when I do go up, I tend to go for 3 days. And it's very rarely you get sort of consistency. What I like about Rutland is every day is quite literally different. You know, you can go, you'll be catching fish hand over fist one day. The next day, it becomes a wee bit more of a challenge. Now, let's see if I can avoid that mistake I made with the last fly. There we go. Get the super glue out there ready. What's my favourite whiskey? God, the questions are shite tonight. Honestly, you're trying to ask me to pick a favourite Stillwater and now it's the favourite whiskey. You know what? Is it... I go through phases, I've got to say. I went through... I say phases. The last phase lasted about 4 years. I tend to... Like I say, I go through phases with whiskey. Just the same as flies, I suppose. You know, they come in and out of favour. Now, I've got a fairly... Why I thought this whole whiskey and a fly thing would be an interesting thing to do is I've got a fair collection of whiskies. Drinking whiskies. I don't collect them, I drink them, you know. That's what whiskey's for. Sadly, when there was a bit of a boom with whiskey. And what happened was all the people that enjoyed drinking whiskey suddenly found things like Aberlour Abuna, which I used to buy for like £38, and it was a great drink for that money. Suddenly, almost doubled in price. You know, it went from 38 to 42 quid. You could get it up to £90, and it just became a bit stupid, really. And when you get Aberlour Abuna for my money at £38, £42. It was a fantastic dram. It was just, you know, you'd get it bottled. Various batches would be different alcohol content, but usually between sort of 58 to 61, 62, some of them were bottled at, and it was a great dram. But then when you get up to that price point in 90 quid, there's a lot of other drams start coming into the equation. So, yeah, I've diversed. What's my favourite whiskey at the minute? Well, I'll show you the bottle. And it might seem a bit daft, actually. But I bought this on a whim. And so it's a 31-year-old and it's a single grain Scotch whisky. So grain whisky's not the same as like your malt whiskies. It's a lot cheaper, you know. So even though it's 31-year-old, it's not that expensive to buy. I think this was about 75 quid or something like that. But what you get with it is the age. You can really taste the age on that whiskey at the minute. And so that's my favourite at the minute. But I go from huge sherry cask whiskies. I love the smell, the nose. It's like toffee and treacle. It's like, how can I say, Caramac. It always reminds me of a Caramac bar. Big sherry bombed whiskies. But then I'll go down the rabbit hole of the Ardbegs and the Laphroaigs and the peated whiskies. And then once you start drinking them, you're like, whoa. And then you have a sherry cask and it's just kind of, ooh. You know, the peat drowns out the sherry. So I go through fits and starts with it. But it's nice. It's a nice drink. Don't get me wrong. I don't sit in the house and tan a bottle of this stuff. You can't. If you're sitting in the house tanning a bottle of whiskey, you need to go to the doctors because you've got a wee problem there. I maybe have 1 or 2 glasses and then that's it. The bottle goes back on the shelf. Hence, I've got a really nice collection. I don't sit and pummel it. So anyway, let's get this finished off. And I've got one little booby eye left. That's not quite right. Now, I'm taking my time getting the, should have mentioned this when I was doing the tutorial. Taking my time getting the booby eyes as evenly as I can. Now there's a good reason for that. If your booby eyes are different sizes, when you fish with them in the water, they will spin and wrap your leader into all kinds of trouble. So the more even you can keep the booby eyes, the less hassle you're going to have down the line. And that's not particularly even, but close enough for government work. I'll give this to one of my teammates. This one. Right. So yeah, I seem to be bouncing all over the show. So I like going to the AMFC matches, and the reason for that is there's a lot of boys that fish the affiliation of major fly fishing clubs that I've fished with and had the pleasure of sharing a boat with over decades, and it's great to see them. I think the last one I fished, I seen Hugh Frew, who I've shared a boat with a number of times, and it was great to catch up with him. He's in his 80s now, but still turning up for the MFCs. So there we go, that's the sparkler booby. Now, you know, hopefully we'll be getting some weed bed action down at Chew. Like I say, I've not been there for a long time. If anyone's got any information, please send it to my inbox. Right, let's have a look. Is there any questions so far? What light is that you're using? Looks really nice. Chris, the one that I'm using to see the flies, because I've got several lights on the go here, is one I got from Amazon, and I'm sure I've done a little review on it. If you PM me on Facebook, I'll send you the link. But the reason it's so bright is I've got a number of lights. I've got a fill light to my right here. It looks like left when you're looking at it. And I've got an overhead light for the vise, and I've got a ring light which I'm using for the vise itself. In fact, I'll tell you what I can do. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see if this works. I need to go back to this. And then if I go like that, yeah, let me have a look. So this is the setup, if you like, guys. It's an absolute midden at the minute. I really need to have a tidy out. So there's the ring light, and the camera you're looking at with a vise has a ring light so that I can illuminate the fly in the vise. There's the fancy new mic that I need to sort out because it's obviously not working right, and there's the other light. Again, that's for the vise mostly, and my fill light is just here to lighten up the other side because there's that much light. And I've got these little tiny lights here, but in fact there's the whiskey collection while I'm about it. That's the first row of it. I think it's about 2 rows deep now, but there we go, that's the setup. Right, there we are. So that's the lights there. Is that the new satin finish F&F claw vice jaws? It is the new vice jaws, and Kevin was kind enough to send them down to me. He said, "Oh, do you want to try the new jaws?" There was nothing wrong with the old jaws. I mean, obviously my vice gets a bit of punishment. Well, it gets a lot of punishment actually, and I use a wire brush to clean the front of it, so it was a bit scuffed. But no, these are nice. It's a nice colour. I've not had a wire brush near it yet, so we'll see how that does. Thanks for the question, Al. Too expensive to tan that. What the blends are for? I didn't really tan anything anymore, Blackfur, because my just old bones can't take it. I can't stand losing 4 or 5 hours of my day to a hangover, I'm afraid. Fun fact for you, Lindsay, I'm actually a cooper by trade who worked for Speyside Cooperage for a few years. Craig, it's funny because I just watched a video of a cooper at work. Absolutely phenomenal skill, really impressive. Chloe, have you ever had issues with Glow-Brite thread snapping very easily? Well, Glow-Brite, Chloe, is not a thread. It's have I got some here? Yeah. So here's a Glow-Brite here. It's a floss. It's not. You can put it in a bobbin and use it as thread, but it's a floss. It just it snaps very easily. Now, I wouldn't use this for actually tying flies unless it was something very specific, and if I was using it, you've got to go very gently with it. Basically, this is for like hot spots, tails, heads. Some people use it for ribs, but yeah, it's going to snap easily because it's a floss rather than a thread. I hope that answers your question there. So I'll just have another wee sip. Chris, there's a lot of pleasure to be had from tying your own flies. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. This setup didn't happen overnight. I've been tying for about 35 years now, and I've got quite literally boxes of material in this room, which I use and I can tap into. The only thing I'm not flush with is generic capes. I don't own any generic capes because, you know, good ones are about 120, 130 quid, some of them, and I just can't stretch to that. I can't justify it for my own fly tying needs, if you know what I mean. If I was, so I've always, people ask me, oh, the fly tying. I said, well, the fly tying's a hobby that complements my real hobby, which is fly fishing. I'm an angler. I just happen to tie flies because I need specific things for my angling. And that's how it come about. I enjoy the fly tying, but I don't tie for other people. I don't sell flies. I just tie for myself. So buying a generic cape at 120 quid, it's not working for me, to be honest. Where did you get the stand that holds your threads? The white ones there were from Semperfly. They do that stand, and I don't know if you've seen the one up there at the back. That's basically a bobbin holder from a haberdashery. So it's for threads, for sewing machines and whatnot. They're cheap as chips. You get them on eBay very, very cheaply. Ceramic bobbin holder could stop the snapping so easy as well. I take it we're talking about the Glow-Brite issue, Craig. Yep, it could do, but as I said, it's not really for tying. It's for making hotspots. Just typed a gasoline with Glow-Brite floss as I want a hotspot. Yep, I mean it's got its uses, and I've used it as a floss. The only time I would tie with it out and out as a thread per se is to tie squirmy wormies. If you're tying squirmy wormies and you're having problems with it, using floss makes it much easier. Right, let's get back to some tying, or I'm not going to get this video finished. So I'll just stick this in the vise and show you. So there's a wee story behind this one. In fact, funnily enough, it's to do with chew. So basically, this fly here, it's a UV cruncher. It is a UV cruncher. So there's a match on. It wasn't an AMFC. It was a more important match than that. It was I want to say Anglers World, but it wasn't that either. It was John Horsey's team comp back in the day when it was maybe the Lexus. I think it was the Lexus team. It's hard to remember, but I couldn't practice was the bottom line. I just couldn't practice. So, but what I could do was I was able to tie flies the night before the match because I was at home. I said, well, I'm turning up in the morning. What do I need to tie? And Paul Calvert, a long-time friend of mine, who was the captain of the team at the time, said, oh, Lindsay, we need UV crunchers. I said, all right, I'm on it. No bother. So I tied up these UV crunchers, and I turned up on the day. I said, right, I've tied 2 each for everyone. Passed them round, and they're looking at them going, no, that's not the UV crunchers. This is the UV crunchers. And in the thorax was some black UV straggle frits. was what was the thorax, and I was like, oh right, oh well, give me them back. So I got them back, and I ended up fishing them, and they were absolutely lethal. I had a bumper day. I finished fairly high up in the field that day, and it was all thanks to this. And I've tagged this fly on the channel. It's called the Accidental Killer because it came about accidentally. So let's get a hook in the vise, and we'll go through this one. Okay. Aberlure 16's a lovely dram, Graham. I think I've got a bottle of that up there. If I've not got the 16, I've definitely got the 10 and 12. I've always got some Aberlure in the stocks. Okay, so the hook we've got now is a Hanak 260 barbless hook at size 10. I pretty much tie all my flies on barbless hooks. The way competitions are going, and I think very, very soon, all competitions will go to manufactured barbless hooks. There'll be none of this debarb after 4 fish or all that. It'll be barbless for the get-go, and there's nothing wrong with that. People that say, oh well, you lose fish. You don't lose fish. Once you've hooked a fish, if you're playing it properly, you're not going to lose it. You lose fish if you're fishing barbless, barred hooks. So barbless hooks, it makes no difference. And what convinced me is when I started river fishing. All I ever tied my river fishing flies was on barbless hooks, and I didn't seem to lose any fish, and that gave me the confidence to go completely barbless, and I think I've been that way for over 10 years now. So yeah, barbless hooks, they're the way to go. And in my humble opinion, I know there's lots of other brands out there, but Hanak make incredibly good barbless hooks. And what I like particular about the 260 here is that long point. Once that's been tagged by a fish, it's got a real deep throat, and you just got a really good hook hold. And as long as you keep pressure on the fly line and you don't let the fish get any slack, that's not coming out. It simply isn't. So, yes, what we're doing? We're doing the cruncher. So I'll just get a bed of Tyne silk down, and we'll take away the rat's tail there. It's nice to see so many people in. Actually, I did think, what are you doing this on a Friday night for? Everyone will be away to the pub. There'll be nobody in. So for the tail of this fly, I'm using just it's an old Chinese cock cape. It's a nice brown colour though, and I'll just move it to the side because I've already taken a feather from it, a single feather. And what I want to do is just take about a dozen or so fibres off of that feather. Now I want the tail about the length of the shank. So I'll catch that there, I'll come up in open turns. Now I'm going to stop there, and then I can come all the way back down. I'm going to get a wrap underneath the tail and pull it up to splay it out. Then I can take away that waste. Now, a lot of people say, and I've had this comment, why are you not using pheasant tail for the tail? And the reason that I'm not using pheasant tail is it's brittle, it snaps, it just doesn't last. If you're using pheasant tail, and I do use it on occasion, but once it's had 1 or 2 fish, your tail's away. Does it make any difference? I'm not so sure. I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the details. When we're fly fishing, I don't really care. Well, I do care, or I wouldn't be tying all these flies. But as long as I think the profile and the size is right, it's the presentation that's key. When you're fishing, if you get the depth and the retrieve right, the flies, it's about 10% of the equation. Depth, speed of retrieve, how you're fishing it, that's what's going to catch you a load of fish. So I've got a nice pheasant tail here, which I'm going to use once I've located my wire rib, which I nearly forgot to tie in, and I'm only one glass in. Jeez, oh man. So we'll get the rib, I'm going to tie it in on my side. Now it's quite a thick rib because I want it to be seen. You know, if I just wanted the rib to protect the pheasant tail, I would use a 0.001 millimeter, something really thin. But I want this rib to be seen. So I'm just going to take some of the pheasant tail fibres. Now I always take away the tip sections that you can see there, because they're the weakest point. Get rid of them. If you tie it in at the tips like that, more often than not, it'll just snap away, and that's not a good thing. So I'll bring my thread all the way to the front. I'm going to get several extra turns in just behind the eye here, and then I can grab, excuse me, had a curry for tea, it's coming back on me. It's going to hurt in the morning. Right, so I've got my pheasant tail into my hackle pliers, and what you've got to do with pheasant tail, it's a real brittle material. If you catch that hook point, you're going to be in a world of hurt, and I'm in a world of hurt with this already. I'll just take that one out. I can trim that up. Don't worry, it can be saved. We can rebuild it. I'm going to bring it up past the thorax area. Then I'll catch that fibre in. I'll come round. That's the thing when you're doing these things live. Shit happens, you know, and you've just got to deal with it. But when you're tying normally, because, you know, us YouTubers, we can just edit that shit out when we're doing the normal videos, but live, you're under the microscope, so you've got to be able to recover things, and things go wrong when you're tying flies. I mean, I'm sure those of you that are in the audience tonight that tie flies, you'll know it doesn't always go right. There's a whole box of flies just up on my workstation there that will never see the light of day, because when I finished them I just thought, oh, I've made a right mess of that. And it doesn't matter how long you've been tying. I mean, there's every chance that you will get it right, but every now and again you're going to get it wrong. So I'll just helicopter that wire away. Let's have a wee looky. I'm curious where the term cruncher came from. Love your channel. I've been tying less than a year and look forward to tying some of your patterns for Lake Erie. Steelhead. Steelhead fishing. You're very lucky, Jeremy. It's I tried that this year actually. I went to Michigan in March, and it was absolutely fantastic. I was there a week, and I managed 2 steelhead, but one of them was quite small. The big one I caught, I'll never forget it, and it's something I want to do it again. Definitely, steelhead fishing, amazing. No drink tonight. The lake, the more, Archie. Alright, you've got to be on your game. Do you ever use the 280 barbless? I do, Chris. I like the 280. It's a decent hook. Hi, Lindsay. I like a wee monkey shoulder from time to time. I don't have any of that. Do you? I think I have tried it. It's not too shabby. Chris Yin, do you make all your flies or do you buy some? I never buy flies, Chris. I can't bring myself to part with the £2 or the £2.30 they cost. It's outrageous. I've spent far too much money on my fly tying stuff to be buying flies, to be honest. Andre, it's all good. What hackle pliers are you using? So I've got these, and some people really hate them, but it's funny. I've got several sets of these, but I've got this one and I've got this one. Now they may look exactly the same, but I've got a red top on the one I like. Now I don't know why. I just like this. When I use this one, it all seems to go wrong. I don't know if it's maybe a wee bit slacker or I don't know. But I use this one with the red top. It's a C&F hackle plier. I've tried lots of different ones. I just really get on with this. I suppose you get used to tools. It's like any tradesman, innit? You know, a plumber will have his favourite wrench and stuff. That's what I use hackle plier wise. Good trip to Ireland. Did you have a good Euro dinking with Peter? Dylan, I had an amazing holiday. Not just a trip. It was a family holiday, and my wife played an absolute blinder. So she hired a house in Innisteag, and it was quite literally 1 minute's walk from the river. So I would be up and in the river for a couple of hours before the family even got out of bed in the morning, which was brilliant. I had a great time. In fact, it's the most fishing I've done in years. So yeah, fantastic. Feel free to send me that box. The box of shite, Blackfern? No, trust me, you don't want it. Unless you want to burn the materials off and reuse the hooks, which I've done in the past, I've got to say. Best of luck, Archie. I'm on Sunday. Is there a match? Oh, is it not the international tomorrow? The national final. It's on the lake. We'll leave you a couple. I doubt there'll be much left on Sunday, Archie, after you boys have been through it. Okay, let's get back to this. Now I've got this. This is Semperfi mirror tinsel. It's very, very small. I don't know how well you can see that label there. In fact, if I do that, you might see it a wee bit better. Micro tinsel. Now I'm going to take quite a generous amount of this off. I'm going to use quite a bit of it. Now, if I trap that in, I'm going to come back, and I want about a third. So if you look at the shank and you break it into thirds, you want about a third. Now, what I'm going to do before I even attempt to bring the mirror tinsel over, I'm going to try and create a small rugby ball with my thread, just to help me on my way. And then I'll bring that thread to the front. Now, if you don't do this next stage, and if you're one of these people that don't like super glue, you're going to struggle with this. You can put as much wax as you like, it's not going to help you. You need the good old super glue. So let's get that on there like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come round and just start to build that thorax. Takes a bit of doing. But it's worth the effort. I know it seems a bit finicky this, but this is a confidence fly for me. I've got a lot of faith in this one. And that's what I mean. It's going to slide right off. I'm just going to get a wrap in there to stop it doing any more damage. I'll do it. Then I can come in with my scissors, simply take that away. Now, the hackle. As you can see, this is my favourite cape, and all the good feathers are sadly departed. I'm really picking at the edges now, trying to find the odd good feather that's left, but that'll have to wait until I go to the BFFI next year. I'll pick up another one, but I just really like this one. I like the way the feather sort of goes black and then ginger. It's just really nice. So I'll take that out and leave myself a tag. I'm going to get a little bit of wax onto my silk. And then I can catch that in. So that's going nowhere now, and I can grab my hackle pliers. Now I know I've had this cape for a long time. The end of the feather is so delicate, so I'm just going to take my time, try and not put any pressure on it really, because it just won't take it. Simple as that. Won't take any pressure. Now as it's coming round, it looks like a hot mess. Don't worry, it'll all come good in the end. So that should do the job. I think I might be wrong, but did somebody ask where the term cruncher came from? If you did, I'm not very sure, if I'm honest. I've always called them crunchers. I know that some people call them magnets, but as I've said on many occasions, I don't really get embroiled with a he said, she said, carry on. I just call it a cruncher type pattern. You know, it's like I tie an awful lot of flies that I just come up with. And people say, oh, what's it called? And I'm like, well, I haven't really got a name for it. It's just like a cruncher pattern, or it's a booby, or it's a lure, or whatever. Yeah, I don't get wrapped up with the old fly tying police. Well, I do get wrapped up with them. I get a wrapping off them. Okay. So we've got that in place. And you can just play about with the hackle till you're happy. That's looking not too shabby. Okay, to finish off, you can use varnish, super glue, whatever your poison is. I'm going to use some Solaris Bone Dry. I really like this stuff. It's not so much the resin. The resin's good, but it's this little brush. It's just so precise. You can be really precise with it. I've already tied a stack of these up, size 10s and 12s I find work best. Now the Hanak hooks, those of you that have been fishing for a long time, you probably used Kamazan hooks, B175s. That's what I used for many years. And Hanak hooks compared to Kamazan hooks are shorter. They're slightly shorter, so a lot of the size 8s will fit in the competition gauge. But there we go, that's us for the crunchers. I think I'm done with that. I'll just put them in the pile. Right, let's see what we're saying. Sandy Dickerson, Google says, invented the cruncher fly pattern. Colin, possibly. I don't know. I don't trust the internet half the time. You've got to take what you get off the internet with a pinch of salt, I think. It's a great fly. I mean, if Sandy invented it, good on him. It's a great fly. Why use the micro tinsel as opposed to the wider diameter? That's a good question, Peter, because if I use the wider diameter, I get much better coverage, quicker, but what you end up with is, and if I just dig that back out, that's not the one I just tied. So what you get with, well, just try and stick that back. It's smoother. So that's a rugby ball shape. If I just ruin this fly, thanks Peter. If I pull that forward, you'll see that what I've got is a really neat rugby ball shape. If I was to use thicker tinsel, it doesn't work. Don't get me wrong, I've tried it. It just doesn't work. So if you use the thinner stuff, you just get a better finish. Does the trout care? Doubtful. You know, I dare say you could use the thicker stuff and it would not matter a jot. They'd still take the fly, as long as it was presented correctly and retrieved at the speed they want it on the day. Okay, I'm not quite sure how long I've been going, so I'm just going to bear with me while I flip over. I don't want you getting in trouble for your better halves because I've kept you here all day. Let me just have a look at this. An hour. Christ, is that an hour already? Unbelievable. I don't know where the time goes. I've only tied a few flies as well. It's you keeping me jabbering. Right, let's get back to the advice. Well, I haven't got anyone in the house at the minute, so my wife's off to Brixton to pick up my youngest daughter, who's going to see some pop star who I've never heard of, and I dropped my eldest daughter off at uni today, so I'm at a bit of a loss of what to do, and I can't watch any more of that Rings of Power. It's destroying me. What they've done with Tolkien's work, that boy should be strung up. It's terrible. Anyway, I digress. Let's move along to the last fly. We'll do one more. That's what we've got. Let me just move some stuff around my bench. And we'll tie something simple. In fact, you know what? We'll incorporate some glow bright, and I'll show you what I mean about the uses of glow bright. Chapel Rowan, okay. Yeah, thanks for that, love. Chapel Rowan, never heard of him. In fact, I thought it was a bloke, apparently it's a woman. Anyway, where are we? We'll just use the 260 at size 10. Again, this is probably more akin in old money to a size 12. And we'll tie something really simple. We're going to tie a cormorant fly now, but we're going to incorporate some glow bright. Let me just grab the bits and bobs I need. Now I'm going to change my thread up for this because I want a hot head on the fly. And what I've got is some of, again, it's the Sumo Power thread. Now Troutline do this thread. Those of you that use the GSP type fly, so I'm looking at that and I'm on this camera. Those of you that use the GSP type threads is you'll probably find that when you get the coloured ones, the colour doesn't hold. It just goes peely-wally and it doesn't hold the colour. Whereas the Sumo threads, they stay nice and bright and they're great threads. So same properties as Nano Silk. and everything else, but it doesn't lose the colour. So I'm going to just get a bit of super glue onto the thread, and then I can come in. Now there's a couple of things I could talk about fly tying all night actually, but what I want to talk about particularly is the colour of thread you're using. It does make a difference. So especially with blobs, I tie all my blobs on with white thread. I've not switched the cameras, idiot. I tie all my blobs with white thread, and the reason for that is when they're wet, they go translucent, and I don't want a big black line coming through my blob. I want it clear, and I finish the heads in white. Now with this particular fly, I'm using this orange thread, and the super glue's kind of mungled that up, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to be doing a lot more in a minute. I want this red colour to come through this time. Now, if I just wanted the hot head, I would do this part in white, tie the fly, and then I would add the hot head at the end. I'd cast off my thread, cast on some coloured floss or whatever the case may be. Now, I said I would use some of the Glow Bright. This is a number 4. I'm only using this one because it happens to be at hand. I've seen lots of different flosses now. Everyone seems to be doing their flosses, but I do think that the Glow Bright flosses still have the edge. I think they're better. I just, you know, putting them side to side, I think that they're just better. So what I've done is I've tied in my floss like so, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to hang that over the handle of my vise there like that. Now I've got some Troutline Select Peacock feathers. Now these are probably the best peacock herring feathers I've ever had, and I use them sparingly, and I want to show them to you up to the camera. So look how much fluff's on them, how much hair's on that. It's just brilliant. Some of them are, you know, some of the peacock herring you get, it's just rubbish, and I like to use nice stuff. So I'll catch that in, and I'm going to bring that up to just before the eye of the hook. And what I can do is put some extra wraps in actually. Let's do it like that. Because again, peacock herring's a very delicate material, and what you don't want to do is catch the point of that hook. So this is a very simple fly. I mean, cormorants, they come in so many different shapes and sizes, and there's so many options and variations that you can do with this fly. It's easy to tie, so if you get snapped off or you lose them, you're not that worried. You can easily enough to replace these in the boxes. Now, as I get up to near the end, I'm going to just come over, get a few turns over the material. I'm going to sweep it back, and then I'll just be able to pull that away. Now you can see there, I mean, look at that peacock herring body. It doesn't get any better than that. Okay, let's have a wee look, see if there's any more. Brixton Academy, great venue if you want to be mugged, Robert, if you want to be mugged. Sorry guys, need to cut this. Catch you in. Thanks very much, Archie, for tuning in. Our 6-year-old loves tying flies. She took her cormorant and buzzer into school today for show and tell. Ah, that's fantastic, Chloe. You've got to keep encouraging kids to do the hobby, or it will simply disappear. I sadly forced my kids into fly tying too young, as fishing, and now they hate it as much as my wife. So fly tying, I suppose it's, the good news is it's not costing me as much money. That's a win. Imagine buying 4 sets of waders. Jeez. Oh. So what I'm going to do now is, sorry, I should have mentioned that. I've got my my globe right here. I've got my spinnery gadget thing, dubbing spinner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this globe right spun up. Just 2 strands of globe right. Better put my glasses back on so I can see what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a rib. I'm going to get a turn in at the back there. Now I've got a grip of this, but I'm going to keep the dubbing spinner on the thread while I'm working it. And I'm just coming through that peacock herald body now. Like so. And I would appreciate it if there's any sound engineers in tonight that could maybe give me a cabbie how I can get the best out of this microphone that I've got for my birthday that I seem not to have set up properly. I'm sure there's a way. Although this little mic, this is a Rode Mini I'm using for the sound in this video, and it seems to be okay, but I just wanted to try and increase the quality as best I can. So the body of that's looking quite good now. You can imagine when this fly's wet, that material will be moving about, and the glow bright will show through. You can see little bits of it on your side already. Now marabou, there we go. I'm running desperately short of marabou. I've got little bits and bobs here and there. Just damp down the ends. And then what I can do is get a couple of pinching loops to hold it into place. And then I can build a nice neat head. One of the things, the ability to keep everything nice and neat. So that's nice and neat. Come on, quick finish tool. Now there's obviously another couple of flies I've got to tie for the match, but yous aren't getting to see them. No, I'm only kidding. Now I'll just come in and pinch that off. It's always best just to damp down everything and slick it back. Then I'll grab the super glue. Now what I want to do is I'm going to intentionally make a mistake here. I'm going to just put a little too much resin on. And what I'm trying to do, and failing, is I'm trying to clog the eye up. And the reason I want to do that is to show you this little trick. So if you take one of your old hackle feathers, and you should do this, you don't want to be on the water and having to clear the eye. it's not best practice. Just put the feather through, you'll clear the eye, and then you can come in with your torch and cure the head. And what I've got is a nice bright red head there. And a super clean eye, if I can show you that. And there we go. So that's the kind of thing I would use Glow Bright for. Or if I had tied the fly with white floss and I wanted a hot head, I might stick a bobbin of Glow Bright into the bobbin just to tie the head on. Hi Brian, how are you? Nice to see you, pal. Aye. Brian, who's ties flies, some of you might have seen some of his videos, was very kind to send me these scissors all the way from America, and they've been absolutely spot on, Brian. I've been very pleased with them. Yeah, absolutely superb. Brilliant scissors. Probably the best I've used. They're razor sharp. But as I mentioned to you before, I use a lot of nano silks and GSP type threads, and they tend to blunt scissors down quite a lot. Hence, I've got 5 or 6 lying around my bench, and I never know which one to pick up because most of them are now blunt. I need to get to the BFFI and get some of them sharpened up. Oh, that's my wife going to pick up my youngest. Don't worry, Chloe, I'm sure they're going to discover boys or girls, as the case may be, and that'll be the end of fly tie. Yep, worth having a few cormorants in your box, Jeremy. I've got quite literally hundreds of different flavours of cormorants. They're a great fly, so versatile, easy to tie, and just fish catchers. You know, they're going to work anywhere. So, folks, I'm going to have to charge my glass, and then I might have to tie some more flies. But I don't want to hold you up this evening. If there's no more questions. How old are you, chap? How old am I? I'm 58 now. I was 58 yesterday, Brian. And for the first time that I can remember, I didn't get any whiskey for my birthday. Right, if there's nothing else, folks, I am going to say cheers and have a good night. Thanks, Brian. It was actually yesterday, but yeah, 58 in a day. Superb. Yeah. And I had a couple of drams yesterday, I'll be honest. But as I say, I had a couple and then the bottle went back on the shelf. I'm trying to think what I had. I think it might have been a 30-year-old blended grain, but yeah. Andrew, thanks very much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Dylan, grand mate. Sadly, I won't be at the Hanack this year, so I'm not going to catch up with you. I might get to the Welsh Dee for some grayling fishing out with the Hanack, though. I'll just need to see how the calendar goes. If I couldn't use resin, Brian, I would probably use super glue. It's easy to use and it's cheap. Fly tying books. I haven't got, so I'm answering Tinkering Today's question. Any fly tying books you recommend? I haven't got any fly tying books per se. What I have got is books like Bob Church's Champion Flies and more books to do with actual fishing I tend to have a lot more books like, you know, Euro nymphing and how to fish and stuff like that, because as I say, I'm really an angler that just happens to tie the odd fly now and again. Chris, no bother at all. It's been good fun. I've enjoyed it. I hope to do a bit more live stuff. I've not quite got the setup just the way I want it yet, but hopefully if I can get this Rode mic situation sorted out, the sound will be much better on the next video. Yep, it's not a bad place to start tinkering today. If you can tie the classic flies, it's like everything, any hobby. You've got to learn the rules, and then you've got to learn when you don't have to follow the rules, break the rules. It's like photography. The rule of thirds is a great guide, but there's times where you can break that rule to create an amazing image. Do you use varnish to finish a fly off anymore, or is that a technique of the past? Craig, I'll tell you when I do use varnish is on buzzers. If I'm tying a lot of buzzers, and I do have a box here actually that I'm working away at. I haven't got. I've got the attention span of a gnat, so I tie like 3 flies and then I get sidetracked onto something else. My brain's moving much faster than it really should do, and so I've got this box of flies here that I've been working away at, and these are a box of buzzers, and they're mostly based on the Vickers. I don't know how well you'll see it there. Maybe if I switch to this view, you can get a better view of them. So these are all finished with varnish. These flies here. And I still use Sally Hansen for finishing buzzers and whatnot. No worries tinkering today, and thanks very kindly for watching. So what I'm going to do is I'll give it another 20 seconds, and if there's no more questions, I'll let you folks get back to your Friday evening. No worries, Craig. And I'm gone.